Yankees Files podcast. We are back. I'm Will Harris, your Alec Whipple, and the rest of you are fans of one of just two teams remaining alive in the American League playoffs. The team with the highest expected weighted on base average of any playoff team this year. The team with the lowest ERA of any playoff team that's still alive. That team, of course, is the New York Yankees. Whipple, this is year 4 of Yankees Files. It's the second time they have advanced to the ALCS. Aaron Boone has now advanced in the playoffs more times than Joe Girardi did as Yankees manager, and he's been to one fewer ALCS. So I don't know what to make of any of that. There's a lot to discuss on this podcast. The Yankees are 4 wins away from a World Series appearance. How are you doing?
Haven't they been to the same amount of ALCSs at this point? Or no,
9, 10, 12, 17.
Okay. Well, I'm doing great. I'm incorrectly fact checking. And yeah, I mean, it's, I think my spirits have been buoyed by the Yankees winning, but also I just feel like the series as a whole, the last 2 games were, but even though the offense wasn't, stellar, I just felt a lot more comfortable and confident with the team versus I think the first 2 games, which had the shares of ups and downs. And, game 3, I think I came away from that saying like that was the first game in which I felt like the team, just a full team effort, which I felt like I was confident in this team advancing. Like I kind of knew then like they were the better team, and they played Kansas City really tough. They outplayed Kansas City at things that Kansas City does really well. And I think the numbers, as you suggested, showed that they probably could have done even better. But just in terms of how a series arc goes, I think the trajectory of the Yankees is so much better coming out of it than maybe some people felt at the halfway point, even if there were lots of indicators to show that the Yankees were outplaying the Royals halfway through the series. I think they just finished on a really strong note. And as opposed to the last time we covered a series win, there wasn't a moment where their backs were against the wall. Even though things might have seemed kind of dicey after game 2, they pretty definitively shut down the Royals. There wasn't a point where the Royals were really, threatening them in any serious way. And that made me feel good. I felt like, they did what they needed to do. Cleveland's going to be tough, but I think we should be really happy with the 4-game win and just a lot of different pieces that, as I'm sure we're going to talk about, might have been up and down the regular season, came together to show out in the last few weeks or last few days.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best thing to me is that the Yankees won a series pretty handily in which almost nothing went their way. I was at game 2 in New York, and like, can you imagine a worse baseball game for me to attend? The opponent hits 500 on balls in play. The Yankees like pretty much set a record for hard hit balls in a playoff series or in a playoff game that result in outs. I think like only I found the stat, only like 2 teams had ever had more or something. And because the Yankees had double plays, I think they had the most outs resulting from hard hit balls of any team in a playoff game. So it's like,
I mean, I'm going to see in my nightmares the Royals taking an extra base on, ground ball, runner scores, overthrow, Royals taking an extra base. Like that is burned into my brain, even though they won.
Yeah, no, it was terrible. And shout out to my wife and Bobby and Joey at DJL MVP for hanging out and coming to the game. But man, like, I wish it had been more fun, especially the vibes were so good at the beginning. Rodon comes out and strikes out the side. I think I tweeted that's the best inning I've ever seen Chuck Rodon pitch, and it was. And then Glaber gets on, Soto gets on, and then it was just downhill from there. And it was like, come on, man. But yeah, I mean, the Royals didn't have a lead after game 2. And as I said, the Yankees, on the offensive side at least, had much worse results than they deserved. So I feel like it's hard not to be confident in the Yankees going into the ALCS, but I don't want to get there already. we, I think, had similar thoughts about the ALDS going into it. We were nervous about the quality of the Royals pitching, but we were confident that the Yankees were the better team. And we put a lot of weight on game one, which the Yankees managed to win. They did not have to go back and have a Reagan's Rodon matchup in game five, which I think we both wanted them to avoid. And they won the series. So, from that perspective, everything kind of went how we expected, or at least how we would have planned. The composition of it was weird. I think we would agree. It's not weird for Giancarlo Stanton to pop off in the playoffs. It's not weird for good pitchers to pitch well, as the Yankees bullpen did, as Clark Schmidt did, as Garrett Cole did. Like, none of that was weird. But I think it speaks to depth on this team that people have wanted to suggest doesn't exist, that the Yankees were able to win a playoff series in which they really didn't get very much from Juan Soto or Aaron Judge. Now, Soto comes out looking fine on WRC Plus because he had a 389 on base, but he slugged 357. His WRC Plus was 117. That's way off what it was in the regular season. Judge obviously also got on base a ton, also 389 because he walked almost 30% of the time. His WRC Plus was only 102. Chisholm, who was, one of the best hitters on the team from the time he arrived, didn't hit at all. He had the home run, but 43 WRC plus, got on base, under a 200 clip. Austin Wells was really bad. Again, he was willing to take walks. That was kind of the story of the series for the Yankees, but his WRC plus was 7. It was Gleyber Torres, who, like Giancarlo Stanton, not weird to see Gleyber producing in the playoffs, and Anthony Volpe, who were also, filling out the top 3 of WRC plus for the Yankees. Oswaldo Cabrera is up there if you reduce the plate appearance minimum. Now, they didn't score a ton of runs, so that in itself is weird, but my read is I should be optimistic that the Yankees, or, I should be encouraged by the fact that the Yankees were able to win a playoff series in which Judge and Soto were not themselves, because I think the conventional wisdom would be, as go Judge and Soto, so will go the New York Yankees. And that wasn't true this time. And it's not like the Royals were a pushover.
Right. But I feel like the narrative at different points this year was like, it's not, Judge and Soto have carried the team, but now other people are stepping up. So like, I'm glad that like that didn't just go away in the playoffs, because you're going to need the supporting cast to step up. But it wasn't like a 2023 where it was really Judge and no one else. Like everybody, maybe, not the people specifically who produced in the playoffs, but I think the Yankees had their moments where they were carried by Wells and Glaber in the second half and Stanton midway through the season. So it is, maybe not obviously on the Judge and Soto level, but I think an important part of this team is the fact that you have a deeper lineup than years past. And it wouldn't surprise me if, in the next series, the results flipped and you had Judge and Soto back to normal. But, like I think it is important in the long run of a World Series run or a deep playoff run to have those supporting pieces come out and be the stars of the show. And it's not like Stanton's never done that before. I mean, I think clearly Stanton has shown he is a valuable playoff contributor for the Yankees, but it's nice to feel like, even though Judge isn't entirely on track, the supporting cast is going to pick up the pieces and the pitching staff is going to keep it at a level where that's possible. And I mean, even, game 1 being the Alex Verdugo game, shockingly, like that was unexpected. And I think like as much as we're going to rag on Verdugo, you have to acknowledge that he made some plays in that game that were important pieces of winning that game. So I think the Yankees are not just Judge and Soto, as we've watched them throughout the year. They're a huge part of it, but they have the guys. And I think people are easily, like maybe people watching from afar easily forget that. But like we've watched the whole year and we've seen those different contributions. And again, like 2022, that team didn't have the supporting pieces this team does. And, it's a different team this year. And I'm glad that that's how they were able to win. I don't want it to be a pattern, but I think it proved that if the Yankees win the World Series, it's not just going to be on the backs of their two best players. It's going to be a full team effort. It's going to be a lot easier if and when Judge and Soto start hitting. I have no doubt that this series will feature some of that. I mean, they're just too good of hitters for it not to happen.
Yeah, I think on the Alex Verdugo topic, you raise an interesting point, and it brings up something that I may have said last week, but that I've said to a few people recently about playoff baseball. In the regular season, what I care about is process. It's very hard to have a bad process all regular season and get good results out of it. It's very hard. And that's why fixating too much on regular season results and not enough on regular season process can lead you to some misguided notions about a team. Whether you are overrating the team that wins a ton of close games and doesn't have a very good run differential, whether you are overrating the team that gets really good results on balls in play without hitting those balls particularly well, whether you're overrating the team that hasn't allowed a bunch of homers but has a home run per fly ball rate that is unsustainably low. In the playoffs, I only care about results. The samples are so small that I don't care how you get them. You just need to figure out how to outscore your opponent and how to get those wins. So I won't take anything away from Alex Verdugo for playing an important role in the Yankees win in game 1, but do I want Alex Verdugo to continue hitting for a 40 WRC plus? Do I think that was the key to the Yankees winning this series? No, but that's the nature of playoff baseball. You will have guys who don't offer much and come through at the right moment. I was looking into some stats the other day. From 1997 to 2000, Bernie Williams was like not a very good playoff hitter at all. Like pretty bad actually, even though he's like the counting stat leader in every playoff offensive category. But certainly he had some big moments in those years. Certainly he played well in some of those World Series. And he is remembered as being great because he was on those great teams and had some big moments that contributed to those great teams. If Alex Verdugo hits for a 40 WRC plus all postseason, that will undoubtedly hurt the Yankees. But if he hits a big home run at some point, like it's going to soften that blow a little bit. To that end, though, I'm encouraged by the Yankees having such a good process. They got on base a ton against the Royals. They have the highest ex-WOBA of any team in the playoffs. 5 hitters on the team have an ex-WOBA of 420 or better in the series. Stanton, Glaber, Soto, Birdie, and Volpe. So I think we can expect that the results will get even better. Because the team's WRC plus in the playoffs so far is only 105. Now, that is the best among any playoff team who is still alive, which is, I think, kind of impressive given they faced a good pitching staff. They faced good pitchers. One thing I do want to call attention to is, as we maybe shift our focus a little bit to the ALCS, Cleveland's pitchers, and obviously you have to adjust a little bit for the quality of offense they were facing, and I would say the same thing about the Yankees pitchers. Cleveland has allowed the lowest ex-WOBA of any pitching staff in this year's playoffs at 283. Now, were they facing all that good in offense? No. So that does play into it. But the Yankees just allowed a 318 ex-WOBA to the Royals, who are certainly not a better offense than the Tigers by any great stretch. So even though we would probably call out starting pitching as a weakness for Cleveland, they managed to really suppress damage contact, to limit walks. Although not as well as they typically would, just better than the Royals did. Get a lot of strikeouts. Cleveland's pitching staff did a lot of things well, and to me, that's where my concerns about the ALCS begin. It's hard to contain this Yankees offense. Basically, the Yankees have to get unlucky not to hit. And that's what happened in the Royals series. But if you're going to get a lot of strikeouts, limit walks, limit home runs, those are the hallmarks of a good pitching staff. And that's what Cleveland has done. So I think there are other things about Cleveland that might bother us more that we'll get into later. But for me, the biggest red flag, the biggest threat that Cleveland poses in this series is just pitching really well. And I'd like to know where you stand on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I think that the Yankees, I mean, clearly the Yankees power outage needs to reverse. Like that is
Yeah.
the biggest
And I think it
takeaway.
will.
I think it will too, but I want to see evidence of it. I mean, the one thing I wish we had seen in the World Series is just at least some sustained maybe not a home run barrage, but more than one per game. I think that worries me a little bit in terms of just I want to see it. I want to see Judge and Soto and those guys be able to produce that, because like you said, Cleveland has a pitching staff that is built on all the things that should worry people in the playoffs. And I think the starting pitching being unimpressive does catch your eye, but the pitchers have done well. Tanner Bybee, Matt Boyd both pitch really well in the ALDS. And I mean, you have, Emmanuel Clase is not giving up 3-run home runs every game. I'm
Definitely
I'm
not.
I'm expecting him and Cade Smith, who's really good. There's a lot. I mean, Cade Smith was really good in that series.
Yeah, didn't
So
he
there's
set the record for strikeouts in a division series?
yeah, he had what was it, 12 or 13 in just
Yeah,
5 innings or something. There's a lot of weapons that they have there, and I think it's maybe I don't know. I probably, if you think about the names, have been more intimidated by, say, the Cleveland pitching of 2022, when you had Shane Bieber and Tristan McKenzie, and your back end of Karinchak, Trevor Stephan, Clase. It's the names might be
yeah,
different, but the results have still been there, and I am a little bit worried. I think the Cleveland offense is better than it was in 22. This is just a better
yeah.
Cleveland team than the last time we saw them. I mean, arguably the last 2 times, including 2020.
Oh, for a second, I was thinking
No.
2017. I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah, yeah.
whoa,
No, no,
whoa,
no.
whoa.
Definitely not 2017. That team was far and away better. But
Yeah,
it's gonna be a battle. I think the Yankees got the better, the worst draw, even though people are worried about running into the Tigers. I would have taken a bullpen game every 3 out of every 4 games,
yeah,
even though it meant facing Scooble. Cleveland's just an up and down better baseball team, and I think it does start with the pitching staff.
yeah. I mean, they're just good at, not letting the other team score runs. They were third in the league in ERA in the regular season. They were top half in FIP. They were 10th in XFIP. They're just, as I said, good at not letting the other team score runs. They were top 10 in strikeouts. They were kind of middling in limiting walks, but they were better than the Yankees at it. I have some concerns. And I agree, that's where they start. And to your point about Cleveland, I think one thing that we saw in the division series was, and we saw this with the Yankees as well, with, only really going to Holmes, Hamilton, Canely, and Weaver, and really mostly just Holmes, Canely, and Weaver for relief. A team like Cleveland, any team, but I think it's brought into starker focus with a team like Cleveland, gets a lot better when they only have to go to their best arms. And with the back end of Cleveland's bullpen being what it is, with Cade Smith and Clase and even like Tim Herron and company, I do worry about like just the danger of not having stuff go the Yankees' way offensively early in games. Because look, is Tanner Bybee a good pitcher? Yes. Is Matt Boyd a good pitcher? It's not as good as Tanner Bybee. There are other guys Cleveland could throw at them, whether it's Gavin Williams or, I don't know that they've even announced very much. But I think it's Cobb, Bybee, Boyd, and Williams who are really on the docket, or at least potential starters. Those guys are all good enough to hold the Yankees down for 5 innings and pass it off to far, far better pitchers. And my concern isn't that those guys will just make the Yankees look foolish, but my concern is that when the Yankees do make damage contact against those guys, they won't get the results. And then suddenly it's the 6th inning and you're facing guys against whom it's much harder to do damage. Like, I think that's the recipe for success for Cleveland, is somehow survive the Yankees lineup the first 2 times or 2.5 times through, and then hand it off to guys who are going to get anyone out.
Mm-hmm. And I think of, the regular season, not indicative, but I think of the game that the Yankees played in August where they touched up, I think it was Matthew Boyd, but then were shut down for like the longest time by the Cleveland bullpen. And eventually their bullpen just cracked. Like, I know it's just one game.
Oh,
but
the game. Yeah, the extra innings game.
Like, yeah, one of the most painful games to watch. Like,
yeah.
And again, the Yankees played Cleveland well in the regular season. Doesn't really matter. But that's like the, I guess, case study of like what happens when, it's too little too late against the starter, and then you're just in a bullpen battle. And I'm not saying the Yankees bullpen can't match up against Cleveland, because I think they were able to, but like, you don't like to win a series, you want to have the advantage. You don't want it to be a coin flip. I think when you get to a battle of the bullpens, it's, at worst a coin flip for the Yankees in Cleveland. And I think you're right. Like, I think to win games, at least this cannot be, again, like, think back to 2022. The games that they lost ended up being the bullpen battles. This can't end up like that. They have to get to the starters early. And at least for, the ones, but most of the games they have to come away with the definitive advantage and then hold on with the bullpen. And hopefully the offense can do its job. But yeah, I worry about, the stupid Cleveland Guardians devil magic games.
Yeah.
We saw in August, we saw in 22, like we saw it in 2017. I don't know.
Yeah. So that is, I think, where we have to go next, which is in 2022, the Guardians had one of just the luckiest offensive performances that I think we've ever seen from a team in a playoff series. It was terrible against the Yankees. And I never want to relive something like that. You mentioned on our last podcast that the best, or maybe Ryan mentioned it, but the best type of hit to get in that playoff series was or the best type of batted ball to get in that playoff series was just a bloop between the third baseman and the left fielder, because they were going to hit 1,000 on it. So I saw a good stat, and I want to credit who tweeted it.
Wait, wasn't that the series where it was Oscar Gonzalez, where they were like singing the SpongeBob theme?
Yeah, so Oscar Gonzalez had hit the walk-off against the Rays, right?
Yeah.
To send them to the ALDS, where they faced the Yankees and just got a million of the cheapest hits of all time. And I'm really trying to find who tweeted it, because oh yeah, okay, so it was Hal to Hell, at Hal to Hell on Twitter. It's not an endorsement of that suggestion. The last time the Yankees played the Guardians in the playoffs, Cleveland had 18 hits with an exit velo under 80 miles an hour. No other team in any ALDS or in any league division series has had more than 10. Cleveland hit 353 on those balls. And I think there was this notion at the time that the Guardians, that's how they play. And they are, they actually have a skill for doing that. Well, they hit 353 on those balls in the division series. They hit 225 on those balls in the regular series. So it was not that they had this incredible, repeatable skill and that putting the ball in play is this unique good. It's that they got unbelievably lucky. And I know we're all scarred from that. But I do want to point out that that is not repeatable. That is not a repeatable thing. And the fact that no team, including other Cleveland teams, has ever had more than 10 of those hits demonstrates how not repeatable it is. So I know that that's how they win games. I know that they do all this BS stuff and then they run into an extra base hit eventually. That is an awful, 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 awful strategy. And it might beat the Yankees, but we're talking about the team coming off a series with a 384 xWOBA versus a team coming off a series with a 285 xWOBA. And I know which team I would rather be.
Mm-hmm. And I think, I mean, but it goes back to the point, like in 2022, I'm thinking game 2, just because I was at that game, and that typical, that ball between third and left that ended up Jose Ramirez got to third base was like the death of us. But in that game,
was Marwin Gonzalez playing left field on that play?
No, I think it was Oswaldo and Donaldson.
Okay, because there's one of them. Slided. One of those plays, Gonzalez is out there.
Didn't like Hicks like try to get one and like because he like
and then he never played again.
Yeah, I don't know, but like I mean, I remember Bieber gave up a home run, Nestor gave up 2 runs. You're tied after the 5th, and then you have Stefan, Karinchak, Clase basically just finish out the game. Clase is pitching 3 innings, so when you have that good of a bullpen and that stupid stuff happens. And the Yankees pitch really well in their bullpen too. But like, you don't want to just be shaking your head thinking about how unlucky you were. Like, you got to put up enough runs so it doesn't matter. I mean, game 3, kind of the same thing. I think that one's even more nightmarish given how it ended. But the Yankees were the better team, and I'm glad they won. So we don't have to talk about like how good the Guardians were the last time they played in the playoffs. But it's so frustrating to watch that highlight reel of all those bad balls. And I mean, I don't know, the odds are against that happening again, but rest assured, when the first one does happen, that's all anyone's going to be talking about.
Yeah, and I mean, I just hope there are fewer, and there should be fewer, because it's a bad strategy. And say what we would about Alex Verdugo, he's a competent left fielder. He makes plays that Jason Dominguez wouldn't make. And I solicited some listener and follower questions, and from Mika to Crides at Mika to Crides on Twitter, we received, do you think Grisham would play a better left field and hit better than Verdugo?
Has Grisham ever played left field, or is like in his career?
I mean, we know he played the corners a bit in Milwaukee.
All right, because he was in right field
because he was in right field famously. That year he had 17 regular season appearances in left field and 16 in right field. Those are his only appearances in the corners in his career in the regular season.
I mean, I think he would, but I feel like we're past the point of like what we think even mattering. So yeah, it's tough to, be in like month 7 of saying that. Like, clearly it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I also think that Trent would be a better option. I think particularly in the playoffs when we know how important the world famous home run is, you would want the guy who is the home run threat, especially if you think he's an equally competent defender, which I think he would be at least an equally competent defender. I think putting a Gold Glove center fielder in left field is probably a pretty good thing to have the opportunity to do. But I agree. I think we're past it. The Yankees have decided that Alex Verdugo is going to be their guy in left field, and that's just what we have to live with. But to Alex Verdugo's credit, and this is damning with faint praise, I think, he definitely made plays that Jason Dominguez wouldn't make. Like Alex Verdugo, I will say, watching him in person and watching Jason Dominguez, you can definitely tell like one of these guys is getting much better reads, one of these guys is getting much better jumps, one of these guys is taking much better routes. And I don't know if that's rust for Dominguez, if it's being accustomed to being a center fielder and struggling with the positional change, and maybe that's something that they're worried would translate for Trent Grisham. But Alex Verdugo plays the outfield perfectly adequately, if not a little bit above averagely. And I think it's funny that like how the floor has risen. The Yankees were putting anyone in left field for multiple postseasons. I mean, we saw Giancarlo Stanton out there. Didn't we see Clint Frazier out there in 2020? We saw Marwin Gonzalez and Oswaldo Cabrera and Aaron Hicks out there.
And that's when Ryan said he thinks left field is more challenging or whatever. Like, I think the evidence maybe, but like there's also a lot of evidence that that is the position that like they do put a lot of random people out there. I don't know.
Now, I do think some of that has been by necessity because clearly Aaron Judge has no interest in playing that position. None. So, that affects your flexibility with, well, this person's going to be in the lineup. We need to fill an outfield spot. That outfield spot just happens to be left field. But yeah, they've treated that position weirdly, I think. I wish Alex Verdugo could play left field and Trent Grisham could hit for him. That might be the optimal thing, but yeah, dude, I don't know. Let's talk about the game one starter, which is a question that Grace at Amazing with 2Gs at 999 sent in. Thank you, Grace. She also asked, do the Yankees continue with Verdugo in left and Wells behind the plate? I think yes to both pretty resoundingly.
Do you think Trevino will ever get a start?
No.
You don't think one of the games 3 in a row in Cleveland? Because that I'm actually shocked about that it hasn't been like a consideration. I don't know if I agree or not, but like it seems very Yankee like.
It does. I've thought about that situation of the 3 in a row. And if he were still like someone's personal catcher, I think maybe there would be an argument, but he clearly isn't. So I don't see it. Grace also, asked, who's your pick for game one starter?
I mean,
so I think there are two key things that are going into a lot of people's decisions here, and I'd like to hear how you weigh them. The Guardians mash against lefties. They're a below average offense against righties. They have like a 114 WRC plus against lefties. On the other hand, Carlos Rodon is a lot better this year at home than on the road. I don't know if there's something causal there, if it's just noise, if it's timing of, when he was good versus when he wasn't, where the Yankees were. But those are the two things that I think people are considering when deciding if they want Rodon or Schmidt going game one before Cole in game two. So who do you go with?
I'd go with Schmidt because he's just clearly pitching better right now. I just feel like I'd rather put the pressure on Cleveland. I think like everything you said about them hitting lefties well. I think Rodon, I hate to be, the like vibes guy, but like maybe getting him a start out of Yankee Stadium would be good to just start off. And I would rather have Schmidt for like 2 games where I know like he will be able to pitch deep if needed. Like game 7, if Rodon or Schmidt is pitching, it's not really going to be a lengthy outing.
It's not a real start. Yeah.
Right. It's an all hands on deck. maybe that's a better opportunity for Rodon to just like air it out there for a few innings.
Uh-huh.
And I think the biggest thing to me is just you don't want to be in a situation where like, it's Garrett Cole to like dig out of a 1-0 hole. Like I'd rather just put the pressure on, go back to Cleveland, win the games you have to win. Don't mess around, try to like line people up. And I feel like yeah, like I don't know, the one counter is like, do you really want Rodon and Heel pitching back to back? That's the one thing. Is that going to tax the bullpen if like both kind of aren't pitching deep into games? I just trust Schmidt and Cole more right now. So maybe like that's the counter. I don't know if I don't know if I want Carlos Rodon over Schmidt. I just want to go all in to start.
Yeah, I agree. I think you play the matchup, which is Cleveland struggles against righties. I think you put the ball in the hand of the guy who, at least right now, is the better pitcher, which would be Clark. And yeah, you go try to get game one and give the ball to Cole with a 1-0 lead. I absolutely agree. I think that at least in this case, the platoon split is more real than the home road split.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think there's not to me an obvious reason why Rodon would be a lot worse on the road than at home. But there is to me an obvious reason why Cleveland would struggle more with righties than lefties. So absolutely, I would go with Clark in game one. And also, I want the guy who I think is the better pitcher pitching more often earlier in the series. It's kind of the macro version of Buck Showalter leaving Zach Britton in the bullpen of like, go to your best guys sooner.
Right.
Don't leave them there, to your point about like, creating matchups and lining guys up and whatever. Don't leave your better guy because you might need him later. Just get to 4 wins as fast as you can. So I would absolutely go with Clark in game one.
Right. And I think like again, like the circumstances where, game 7 even matters, like those just it's like you're just getting too cute with it. And I think
Yeah.
managers get in trouble. The worst in my mind, like the worst best case scenario is like, you're up 3-2 heading home and then you have Garrett Cole pitching. So like
Yeah.
I don't even feel like there's a scenario in which like it'd be like, well, we want to line Rodon up for game 7. Like so much would have to go wrong. It's like you're just undercutting
Yeah.
yourself. So I agree.
From Name That Yank on Twitter, who will be the biggest liability on this Yankees team during the series and why?
Um, hmm. Interesting. I mean, is it wrong to say like I'm a little worried about Luis Heel on a 2-week layoff and like at game
No?
4, what if if you're up 2-1 or down 2-1, like that's still and anyway, unless you're like up 3-0 with a chance to clinch, like game 4 is going to be important. And I'm a little bit concerned about the way he's going to come out of that.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's either Heel or Rodon.
Right.
Rodon, as we said, has the matchup concern, and maybe there are some respects in which the Guardians are a little bit of a more favorable matchup for him because his big failing. Oh, Chris Kirshner just now announces that Carlos Rodon is starting game 1 for the Yankees.
Okay. Well,
So, as I was saying, I think the reason to be optimistic about Carlos Rodon against the Guardians is that the thing that gets Carlos Rodon is very rarely what happened to him against Kansas City, which is a bunch of balls like sneaking through and stringing hits together. It's the home run.
mhm.
And the Guardians absolutely have home run threats. We saw it with Lane Thomas. We know about Jose Ramirez. We know about Josh Naylor. We know about John Kenzie Noel, who I love. But the Guardians as a team don't hit the ball over the fence a whole ton. So if you can get Carlos Rodon in there, have him miss bats and put him in a situation where he's not facing major home run threats, maybe it can go well. Do I love this decision? No. I just got done talking about how I think Clark Schmidt is the better pitcher. But we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, they're both going to pitch twice in a 7-game series. Like, it's not a question of somebody getting an extra start. So I don't know. After I just got done, again, we got done arguing the other side. Game 3 is very pivotal. It's just as pivotal as game 1. So the same guys are going to pitch, and we'll see. I don't know. It's not going to make or break the series. That's, I guess, how ultimately I feel about it.
Yeah. And I share your concern about Luis Gil, to be clear.
Yeah.
Maybe he's like so rested that he can throw 7 innings and he's going to be so, sharp that he doesn't walk a million guys. Maybe it's the exact opposite.
I mean, I'm surprised he didn't even they weren't considering throwing him at all for an inning in the ALCS. Maybe they were and it just never came up, but
I mean, I think they were setting him up to be used in extra innings in game 2.
That's true. Yeah.
Because there wasn't going to be anyone else who could. But I don't know when they could have used him. They were never in a blowout.
Right.
And I don't think there was a good argument to start him if there were a game 5.
Yeah.
I guess he would have been an option.
Right. He didn't pitch at all in game 2 and move some of the other guys back a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
I guess it's not like you have to get Tim Mesa work.
Right. I mean, I guess it was close to being a blowout. So maybe if John Birdie doesn't make that double play, we see Luis Gil in a 6-1 game or whatever. But I mean, the other thing I want to ask is Nestor is not gonna pitch, right? Like,
I don't think so. I think if they've talked about adding a pitcher or 2, it sounds like probably just 1 to the roster. And my expectation would be that that's Marcus Stroman.
Yeah. I mean, he seems like the only one really staying ready.
Yeah. I mean, ready. I don't know what Cody Poteet is up to, but it has to be someone who can give you multiple innings, right? So it's not Mark Leiter Jr., certainly.
That's so disappointing that this is how the Mark Leiter Jr. trade ended up.
Well, he's under control for a while. And he maybe was figuring something out at the end of the season. But yeah, it is disappointing that he's not a weapon in this year's playoffs for sure.
Right.
Yeah, so I guess it's Marcus Stroman, and that's how you address the, what if someone can't go deep into a game, gets roughed up situation?
Here's my other question. I mean, while we're talking about roster, I know we're talking about Grisham. I know we're talking about Dominguez. Dominguez, they didn't play at all. Is there an argument to take one of them off and put on a Leiter or someone else?
Well, I think, so to me, there are a few candidates for being the guy who gets left off for them to add a pitcher. Grisham, Dominguez, Rice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Duke Ellis really is one. And my reason for that is with Cabrera and Birdie presumably being the first baseman going forward, you're using one of your potential pinch runners as a starter, which means you have one of them, sure, I guess. But the Yankees love to have a dedicated pinch runner. And if that can't be Cabrera or Birdie, then it kind of has to be Duke Ellis. And if Cabrera and Birdie are the only guys they're going to have play first base, I don't know what the spot for Ben Rice on the team is. If there's no Ben Rice, you kind of need Trent Grisham or Jason Dominguez as an option to pinch hit as a left-handed batter. So...
But do you need both? I'm saying if they want to take... I think Rice is the clear guy.
You think if they want to add 2 pitchers?
If they want Leiter for some reason... Or
if they wanted to add another pitcher, I think they would get rid of Dominguez.
Yeah, that's my feeling too. I don't know if they'd actually do it. I think Rice is the guy. I think you're right, though.
Yeah,
which is kind of surprising that it worked out with Cabrera and Birdie as well as it did. And credit to them.
Good for them. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and good for John Birdie hitting the ball hard.
Great. Looked great at first base.
Yeah, I witnessed history. I saw John Birdie's first major league appearance at first base.
That you tell your kids about that one.
I will. Should we talk about whether I'm a curse before we start to, make some predictions and wrap this up?
I sadly, yeah, I think we might have to.
So I didn't want this to happen, obviously.
Nobody does. Nobody does.
During the last week of the regular season, I tried to attend the game in which the Yankees clinched the American League Eastern Division, as John Sterling calls it. And I failed to do so. I attended game 1 against the Orioles, which the Yankees lost. I attended game 2 against the Orioles, which the Yankees lost. For game 3 against the Orioles, I was on a train to go to a wedding and therefore could not attend the game in person. The Yankees won. I did not attend game 1 of the ALDS because I went to a concert. And there's someone on Twitter who's really, really mad about that. I don't know if you've seen our mentions, but he's furious. Guy's got a problem. So I did not attend game 1 of the ALDS. I did attend game 2 of the ALDS, which the Yankees lost. Now, the Yankees only lost that game, like, if that game goes any other way with that, cornucopia of batted balls, the Yankees win. But of course, I attend and they get remarkably unlucky. The Royals get remarkably lucky and the Royals win. I did not go to Kansas City to attend game 3 or game 4. So the Yankees are 0-3 in the last 3 games I have attended. They're 2-4 in the last 6 games I have attended. And they are 4-5 in the last 9 games I've attended, 4-7 in the last 11 games I've attended, and then we get on my massive 15 game winning streak or whatever it is. So I don't have a good record since the 2023 season started. And I was 3-2 in 2024 following the Jazz walk-off, and then I went to 3 straight losses. And I'll apologize in advance. I do plan on being at the ALCS, and if the Yankees are so blessed as to advance, the World Series. So, from someone who was once a curse and then broke out of it, I'd love to hear, what do you think I can do to change my fortune?
I mean, I feel
Because I
like, yeah,
already moved cities, which worked for you,
right.
but
Well, that's
if
the
anything, it made it worse for me.
I know. Well, the problem with mine just had such a targeted fix. Like my record outside of games at Fenway, probably since like 20, going back farther than 2021 is actually pretty good. My lifetime record at Fenway is abysmal.
Yeah,
And I said I'm not going back for 5 years. A conversation in the future, but definitely I might go back next year. I might have to break it a year early. But as of right now, I left in 2021, and I think the Yankees before the last year, they've lost the last 2 games I went to, but before that, I think I was like 12-2 or something immediately following. I went on a very good streak, so I can't really say don't go to Yankee Stadium. I mean, you just bought a series of tickets that, if you decide not to go, it'd be a poor financial investment. I don't want that for
it would.
you. Um,
Thank you.
but I don't know, like, you gotta maybe shake up the vibes or something. Maybe committing to a package of season tickets means, you'll be rewarded for good luck. That could be
Maybe.
the case. Wearing, I don't know if you're still wearing your Jabba Rules shirt, but
I mean, I've tried a bunch of different things. I've tried
nothing's working.
the Jazz walk off, I was wearing the Jabba Rule shirt, so then I wore it again and they lost, and then I switched and they lost, so that I wore it and they lost. I've been switching up the sweatshirt and the hat and the t-shirt, and I've been trying a lot of things, man.
Yeah. It's tough. I don't know if there's an easy answer, But, like, you are the king of large sample size, so your large sample size is still intact. Like, you're still a
Yeah.
good hitter.
I
You're
mean,
just
the
going through a bad
Yankees
stretch.
the Yankees have won games that I can be certain I attended. The Yankees have a 714 winning percentage, which is a 116 wins per 162 clip. And that spans good years and bad years and everything in between. In those
Yeah.
games, they would have a 619 Pythagorean winning percentage, which is obviously still very good, but that suggests that my presence is actually lucky, like affirmatively lucky. Because they've played better, or they've had better results than they would deserve based on run differential in those games. But I am worried that, like, I was flying so close to the sun. I went from September, or rather October of 2010 to April of 2023 without attending a Yankees loss. The regression monster seems to have come for me pretty hard, and I am concerned about that.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta hope that, tomorrow is the day that it turns around
Yeah,
and you're not having this conversation in the future. You definitely are a much more streaky player than me. I mean,
I am.
Fenway aside, I've been rocking pretty close to 500, except for the last like 2 years. I've kind of moved to.
Yeah.
I'd say what's my? I have this on a note somewhere. So I'm 27, 23. So that's
Okay.
like about like what, an 80, 89, 90 win season.
Yeah.
But definitely has improved. I used to be like below 500, and
Yeah,
I
you
had to
were
improve that a little bit.
bad for a while.
So you know what? Tomorrow could be the day it all turns around. Like, you never know. Sometimes maybe you just need a Yankees win where they get a little lucky. Like,
Maybe.
maybe not the way you want them to win, but that could be just the
Yeah.
break the slump. But
What's your playoff record?
my playoff record is very small, but it is not good. At 15 years apart, no, sorry, 13 years apart, 2 losses, including the only World Series loss in Yankee Stadium history. Actually, the only playoff loss that year. And then the
Yeah.
2022 ALDS. I will be standing in attendance for, if there is a game 6, I will be there. So maybe I'll start to build out that sample size. But yeah, I've turned down opportunities to go to playoff games they've won. That's a little tough. I
That's a
think,
shame.
yeah, like, I mean, 2010, I had a chance to go and I didn't go. I think 2019, I was thinking about going and didn't go. Um, my dad wanted me to fly up for game 1 of the ALDS this year, and I couldn't make it work. So
Man.
I can't say, like, in the biggest games I've been to, the Yankees have still come up short. And that, I can't say I'm not a curse, because that is not true. Like, I gotta do some work on my own record, but we all gotta
Well, I
do
will
work on
say,
ourselves.
I don't think it's your fault that the Yankees lost a playoff game to Cliff Lee. I
Yeah,
think they were dead set on doing that regardless.
that was, yeah. A 12-year-old me was really upset by that. That was tough. It
Yeah,
still haunts me.
that's totally fair. All right, Whipple. I think it's prediction time. How does
Yeah,
the ALCS go?
I think the Yankees are going to win. We said this from the beginning. They are the better team. The path is clear. It's not, they're not facing a pushover. Like, this is even if the Orioles or the Astros, had advanced, like, I think Cleveland still proved they were the best team outside the Yankees in the league this year. Um, I mean, I want to see a game 6, so I'm going to say Yankees in 6, but I also think, like, that seems about right to me for this to wrap up. I don't feel like the Yankees are going to be able to win it in 4, maybe 5, but I feel like, there's going to be some BS that goes on in Cleveland. It's, to me, this
Yep.
reminds me of 2009 ALCS, where the Yankees took care of business at home. They went to, on the road to a team that they struggle on the road. Not that they struggle in Cleveland, but, weird stuff happened in Angel Stadium in 2009. Weird stuff's going to happen in Cleveland. But I feel like in the end, like, it's going to be either a 5 or a 6 game victory. But yeah, I think the Yankees are well positioned for their first pennant in 15 years. It would be very disappointing if they weren't able to do it.
I also have the Yankees winning the pennant. The Zips game by game playoff odds have not dropped yet for the ALCS, but The typical or the traditional Fangraphs playoff odds give them a 60% chance to win this series, which is high, but I'd like it to be higher.
Is that better than they had to win the ALTS?
Maybe.
I thought they were like 50 something. I don't know. I
Yeah, we
guess
might
maybe
not be comparing apples to apples because
right,
those could
5
be
to 7
it
game
could have
series.
been well, but those also could have been two different playoff odds because I
Fair.
think I was using the Zips ones before. But anyway, yeah, I think Yankees in 5 or 6 sounds really good to me. Look, this is just a good team. They're good at scoring runs, they're good at preventing runs, and that's what baseball is. The Guardians didn't win 92 games this year by accident. And we should underestimate them at our own risk. But the Yankees are doing the things that you would want a good team to do. And they certainly have the more talented roster. And just as we said about these playoffs on our previous podcast with Ryan, the Yankees are less reliant on things just going their way than their opponent in this series. And that's a good position to be in. Your confidence out of 10 in the New York Yankees, given what you saw in their 3-1 victory in the ALDS against the Kansas City Royals?
I mean, I'm pretty confident. I don't know. Like, if a lot of things didn't go their way and they still win, like, I'm going to assume more things will go their way. They just have the better players.
Yep.
Cleveland's a tough matchup, but it's nothing the Yankees have shown they can't beat. I mean, there's, the objective numbers say they should win. The subjective narratives say they're capable of beating Cleveland. There's no like, well, the Astros are bad, but also they have the Yankees number. I mean, none of that's coming into play. And I mean, from the beginning, I think the Yankees are going to run into a tough matchup if they make the World Series, but this is more about what's right in front of them, as Aaron Boone likes to say. And I mean, a 9.5 or 10 in that, I think any World Series after that, like, it would be a lot more even. It would be two really great matchups. I hope for the sake of, my entertainment every night for, the week of October 25th, they get there. Cause I mean, it would be so much fun. Just even if I wasn't a Yankees fan, I think that would be a great matchup. But first, like, they got to take care of business. There's no reason they can't do so. I'm confident that the things that they're going to have to do, they're going to be able to do them. So, I don't want to say 10, but like my feeling and their ability to do this is as high as it's been for them entering a playoff series in recent memory.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's interesting because you brought up the 2009 comparison. The team with the playoff demons in this series is Cleveland. The Yankees are the team that has eliminated them 3 different times, that has their number to the extent that that's something that exists. So look, I don't think Major League Baseball players need any motivation to like understand what's on the line here. The Yankees know what they're playing for, so do the Guardians. I'm not going to read into the past results. The Yankees are the better team. They are better equipped to win a playoff series. The Guardians just struggled with a team that certainly has good pitching, but they needed all 5 games to squeak out a win against a team that won 80 however many games in the regular season. Playoffs are weird. Anything can happen. I've always said that. I will continue to say that. But the Yankees are the better team, and I hope that, in a little more than a week, we are, or, maybe even just about a week, if the Yankees can take care of things quickly, we are talking about a team that just won the pennant and is on its way to the World Series.
I'm not going to tempt fate, but we'll probably only have time to ask this question once. Just a one-word answer. Who would you rather win the NLCS? Who would you rather face? I agree, but I don't know. The Mets are scaring me still. So
no, the Mets are hot, and they have good players, and they've hit very well, and they have enough pitching to beat anyone. But I can't root against there being a Subway Series in one of the 2 Octobers that I'm spending in New York Like, it's not even
Fair.
about the quality of the opponent. It's about like a Subway Series would be the most fun thing that could
Right.
happen.
But I mean, on the counterpoint is if we're just talking about rooting, I mean, what an alternative if there's no Subway Series with the
Yeah.
Yankees making the Yankees Dodgers would be similarly electric.
No,
So
it's awesome
if
either
the
way.
Yankees listen, Rob Manfred, if you're gonna rig the games, just like do it right. Make it,
Yeah.
make it very clear. Like, don't make it even up to chance. Just rig them. We need egregious balls and strikes calls. Like, just make it happen. At the end of the day, Cleveland, they're not gonna remember that.
Cleveland doesn't have the narrative that the Yankees do here.
Right.
It's Cleveland versus the Dodgers, Cleveland versus the Mets. That doesn't do anything for anyone. Yankees, Dodgers, Yankees, Mets. Now we're talking.
We need it to be rigged. I mean, it's been 15 years. Like, nobody has it worse than Yankees fans. Just throw us a bone.
Yeah. It's either a Subway Series or something that used to be a Subway Series.
Right. So we'll see. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. All right, Whipple, any other parting shots?
Yeah, one thing I mentioned in our text conversation, just a quick wrap up the ALDS, talk about how bad the TBS broadcast crew was. Bob Costas being horrific, but like also kind of entering the zone where like he became so bad that he was actually funny. And I know you don't agree, but like the Stanton stuff was like became legitimately hilarious to me in the fourth game where it's like, he's just like Stanton like is in a wheelchair like rolling around the bases. But I mean, so many reasons that broadcast was bad. I know he's not calling the ALDS, but
Thank goodness.
one thing I learned yesterday is the Yankees are, I think, like 10-1 in series that Bob Costas has called. Did you know that?
I didn't. Is that because he was doing like the
Yeah,
90s playoff run, basically?
pretty much. And then he retired for 22 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, listen, Bob, if you want to make a guest appearance, Bob, just to keep the record alive, if the Yankees win, we'll support it.
Absolutely. All right, Whipple, that wraps things up for this 127th episode of the Yankees Files podcast. People can keep up with us at yankeesfiles.com. They can find us on Twitter where we're at Yankees Files. They can get the podcast wherever their podcasts are available with the added bonus of video on Spotify. The full video podcast also goes up on YouTube on the Crosstown Sports channel, where you can also get the Battle of New York with Joey, Caroline, Rich, Matt, and the gang. I'm not going to solicit your likes or thumbs up or comments or ratings or whatever. I'm just going to solicit that you watch these games, you root for the Yankees, that you're loud if you're at the stadium, and that you come back and celebrate, hopefully, a pennant with us, similar time, similar place, whenever it is that the ALCS wraps up. And I just really hope we are previewing a World Series that the Yankees are participating in. Until then, let's go Yankees.